we have two things that we introduced as main objects: the public health bit and then the economic bit. So the public health bit is on harm reduction, because the war on drugs have its 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars thrives on, first and foremost, the demand side, the supply side, harm reduction, and alternative livelihood. And we captured all this in the new enactment. And I'm happy that Act 1019 enshrines that in its sessions. The Narcotics Control Board, at least by corporate governance-wise, this new act has enhanced their scope. So they are now a commission, not a board again. Beyond that, our view and our hope is that the new enactment will serve as catalyst for all of us who are interested in this enterprise. And I must admit that even in the developed world, you realize that governments are supported primarily by non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations. So if you go to a place like the United Kingdom, where in respect of government, you have the all-party parliamentary group that partners open society and some well-renowned people in the war on drugs, hold fora. All they do is to depend on the private sector that helps government drive. Government must be able to give us the framework, and that is what I think our government has been able to do by this enactment. By this enactment, we're going to go again to ensure that the Narcotics Control Commission currently is able to give us what we all understand as a regulation to flesh this 1019, to give proper meaning to the various sections that we have in the law. And so the special mitigating provision that we put in, which was really touched on by Dela, is on ensuring that the psychoactive ingredient, which everybody frowns on, those who do not have knowledge in the industry frowns on. And that is what the faith-based institutions fight us on, that why would you allow our people to go and consume them? Because it will make them go mad. But science has taught us that when you have it at the international standards as admitted, and that's what this new enactment admitted, the 0.3% dry weight threshold of the THC, the tetrahydrocannabinol, that is what we have in this law. The regulation is, and I want to be very emphatic here, Ghana did not, and we have not legalized cannabis. But we are in the process of managing a regulated cannabis regime. Regulated cannabis regime. We haven't legalized marijuana, cannabis, or whatever name you give to it. We are hopeful by policy-wise regulating this business, because with or without it, our current regime, prohibition frowns on those who grow the plants, the substance, and people are growing them, and enforcement agencies are going after them. So Section 4 will give us that opportunity by the alternative livelihood. And that is why we brought that enactment, so that we'll be able to encourage the economic drivers to focus, so that our peasant farmers would also get that bit of work to do, and we'll be able to move on as we wish. Why the new changes were necessary in Act 1019? I believe that as a country that have produced a great son, Kofi Annan, as #1 international public servant, we have signed on to all the treaties of this world. And then the United Nations is improving by its own rights and regulations and legislations, and we will be left behind. And so we were influenced by the UNGAS document, the UNGAS 2016 improved document, where they delisted cannabis from the banned substances. And so on the platform of the listed items, cannabis had been delisted. And so we were influenced by our thinking in shaping the policy to ensure that that new mitigating measure, when it is brought, at least we are not just being misled or are being guided by the international framework. The new act gives a wider theme, like I said earlier on, for the Commission, and the focus on public health harm reduction as established, and then social economic impact on focus on alternative livelihood, and then medical advantages, which have already been expressed. The benefits of the cannabinoid and the CBD oils. I always use this as an example. Once upon a time, I was privileged to be in the United Kingdom, and I crossed a pharmacy shop. And in the shop, I saw CBD oil. And I had read a lot about it, and I realized it was an immune booster. And here am I in Ghana. Fortunately, in the UK and Ghana, we live in the same time zones. But if you go on mandatory travel, sometimes you have to fly from Ghana to Dubai, who is 4 hours ahead of us. And then you have to go back to a place like Canada in Vancouver, who is like 7 hours behind us. Crisscrossing these time zones. Mandatory. It is a demand on you as a public servant. You lose your body's immunity. And so I had gained wisdom that I needed to be very solid and sound for my public work. And I would want to buy a CBD from a pharmacy shop so that it would stimulate my energy levels. Unfortunately, the shop attendant told me that, where do you come from? Seeing me as a dark-skinned person. I said, I'm from Ghana. He said, no, you can't buy CBD in this shop. And I asked why. He said, it's outlawed in your country. You can't purchase this and send it to your country. So at the time, I formed an opinion right from that pharmacy shop. Whatever it took as a public servant at the time to help drive and achieve this goal, because out there, it was on the shelves and people were buying. And we also run the same common law system in our country. Why can't we also do the same? And these are some of the things that drove us. And I want to congratulate my colleagues I was with in Parliament at the time, and some civil society organizations, IDPC, Ofayao, yourself. Forgive me if I call him Ofayao. He's my cousin. So this is Ghana. I had an Ofi. And I must say that these are the drivers that got us to do what we've been able to do. We haven't stopped. I'm no more in Parliament, but I'm still serving in government. And whatever we can do to help shape this law and give all of us the benefits that we derive and we deserve as a people. There's a huge value chain market out there that we are working on. And I know that the Commission is in its process of laying before Parliament the regulations that will offer us the needed transformation as we all expect to see. Government is committed by demonstrating the enactment, and we are very much resolved. Just last week, I had a word with the Minister of Interior about the process and where we have gotten to, and I had a positive response that pretty soon my dreams will be seen. And so I wouldn't take too much of your time, but I want to just encourage all of us to support government in its determination to ensure that this billion-dollar industry, and that is why we are all focused on ensuring that we get it right. It's not just going to be like the eminent son of Ghana said, it's not a security matter anymore, but it is a public health matter. It is a livelihood matter. It is a socio-economic subject that we should all have a bite of. We should not leave it out for only faith-based institutions to determine the fate of our lives. And that is what's said. If you go into our prisons, you realize centers which are supposed to be reformative centers, people come out rather hardened. And we do not have the resources to build too many prisons. I'm in government and I understand the structure of our budget and how our revenues are mobilized. And we should all understand that it won't happen overnight. It is just going to go through some processes before eventually we arrive there. But we will partner mostly these civil society organizations. And I want to mention IDPC once again for helping us, holding workshops for my colleagues in Parliament at the time to broaden our appreciation of the subject and driving us to where we are today. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you very much. You know, I'm a journalist. I host politicians a lot, and I get to engage in such interactions a lot. And whenever I'm listening to politicians, like Honorable said, Kame Champon himself, there are a few things I look out for. Honorable, is that it? Okay. There are a few things okay. Sure. So there are a few things I look out for whenever they are speaking, politicians. And in the absence of those phrases, you can believe everything else they have said. However, when they use those phrases, anything they say is a lie. Listen, it is in the pipeline. Forget it, it is a lie. Plans are far advanced. Forget it, it is a lie. Fortunately, Honorable, I listened to you. You never used the fact that it was in the pipeline. Neither did you tell us that plans are far advanced. You are a very truthful politician. Thank you very much. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We are done with the presentations. Now, we should be out of here in the next 1 hour. So we are appealing to everyone here, including our panelists, to go straight to the point to answer the questions. Those of you who will be given the opportunities to ask questions as well, when the time comes, we do not expect you to give us winding preambles. Just go straight to the point. Now, my lady here will help us to sanitize the microphones as well as sanitize the hands of our panelists, because we'll be sharing the microphone around. There are 2 microphones, each of them. Okay. Well, also for the public to see that we are being cautious, Honorable. So please go ahead. Let's do it. Thank you very much. Yes. And we'll also ensure that the microphones are properly sanitized so everyone is safe. As we wait for that to be done, bear in mind, even as you are here, you can invite people to participate in this program on social media, because this event is streaming live on the Facebook page of the West Africa Drug Policy Network, WADPN. Go on Facebook, search for the West Africa Drug Policy Network. You can do that right now and share the video so that those who do not have the privilege to be here this morning can have the advantage of enjoying and benefiting from the discussions we're having here, ladies and gentlemen. We've listened to our 4 panelists, and we will now ask them a few questions. Okay, Prof has left his seat. When Prof returns, I will be... All right. Unfortunately, very soon, Prof has to leave for another very important engagement. And so because of that, I'll direct my first 3 questions to Prof. Prof will briefly give us the answers, and then we'll proceed with the other panelists. Prof, you are a human rights expert. Indeed, I've engaged you on a number of occasions on TV in respect of human rights conversations. And more often, we do hear the need for the fundamental human rights of people who use drugs to be protected. First and foremost, when we say or we talk about human rights, what do they mean?
Thank you. Human rights are entitlements or claims or privileges that we enjoy as human beings simply because we are human beings. But in so enjoying these privileges and claims, it enables us to protect and to promote our dignity as human beings, and to enable us to perform certain functions and obligations that ensure that we are able to achieve a certain status in our lives as human beings. So if I'm able to acquire a certain status, it would have been possible to achieve that status because I enjoy certain rights. And if I want to maintain that status, I still need to enjoy my rights to be able to enjoy that status. And if that status is affected or violated, I should have the right to go to court to protect that person. So human rights simply are supposed to protect our dignity and our worth as human beings.
So in talking about dignity and again referring to drugs, there are those who believe, maybe rightly so, maybe wrongly so, that many of the crimes in society, the crimes that are against other persons' human rights, rapists, pickpockets, and all the other crimes you may think about, are caused by people who are suspected to be under the influence of drugs. In this instance, how do you then relate drug policy with human rights without also infringing on the rights of people who already feel threatened by drugs, for example?
Yes, it's important to look at the question in two ways. One is the fact that if we're talking about linking human rights to drug policy issues, it doesn't mean that if you have human rights, there is no limit to the rights that you enjoy. Almost every right that we have has some limitations to the enjoyment of that right. And you are supposed to enjoy that right, taking into consideration the rights of other people. So it is not a carte blanche that you can just use it. Now, where you act in any manner that your behavior infringes on the rights of other people, it becomes the responsibility of the state to respond to that in such a way that you cannot continue to infringe on other people's rights. And that is why criminal law becomes important. And criminal law comes in through the help of the police, for example, of course, the whole criminal justice system, including the courts and the Attorney General's office and so on, all come into the picture to ensure that there is some measures put in place to curb any excesses that will flow from uncontrolled enjoyment of your rights, so that other people's rights can also be protected. So that is where there's the cutoff. There's a cutoff point where you are supposed to enjoy your rights, but in enjoying your rights, you don't infringe on other people's rights. But where you violate other people's rights and the law catches up with you, we are saying that new rights accrue to you. Some rights may be restricted or may be denied you or suspended because of something wrong you have done. So you may be put in prison. Your freedom of movement is restricted. But it doesn't stop you from voicing out your frustration when you are not given food to eat in the prison, because that is your right. You have the right to food in the prison. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to make sure that these rights that you are enjoying, there are also some new rights which will accrue to you while you have become a suspect or an accused person or even a convict. And that is where you should have access to a lawyer in case your rights are violated in this way or manner. And you should be able to determine what kind of evidence you want to give in court as the court tries to judge your case to determine if you are guilty or not guilty. Yeah, right. So these are where the linkages and the nuances are.
Prof, my final question to you is, there is a global drug policy reform movement. Would you advocate for drug policy reform with respect to human rights on drug, or what else would you propose in this case?
I think it's fundamental that we bring the human rights angle into the discussion, because it all boils down to protecting the dignity of the person who has offended. And statistics and research indicates that where a person's right is protected, that person is enabled to also seek to protect other people's rights. Because if the person's rights are continually protected, the person may at a certain point in time become a deviant and want to vent his or her spleen on the society. Okay, so there are a number of people who are seen as criminals, but it's a society that has made them so. So if you are talking about the drug issue and you want to reform drugs, the current thinking is that it should have a human rights compliance element to it. There should be a public health element to it. And anything that you do should be based on evidence. to be an evidence-based approach, and that will enable us to be able to move away from the prohibitionist approach, the criminal-minded war on drug approach, which has not worked, and it has caused so much harm to the society. So to reform this harm, to repair the damage caused, it's important that we bring in the human rights element. And like I said earlier on, it is not to say that we endorse what these people are doing, but we are saying that it is a better way to solve the problem. The hardcore approach hasn't worked, and it's because you are denying people their rights, and therefore their mindset is also to continue to deny other people their rights. And so two wrongs will not make a right.
Right, thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Professor Feje Itia. Prof, we are grateful to you for your time this morning. May God richly bless you, and you may leave and attend to the rest of the day's programs. Indeed, you have stayed throughout the time we allotted for you to be here, and we are very grateful. Another round of applause as Prof takes leave of us. Thank you. As we turn our attention back to the panel, Dr. Mary Aram Achinyo, you spoke about sustainable development goals. I want to focus on the sustainable development goals. Now, we have heard several times that drug use should be treated as public health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. Now, as a public health physician, could you help us understand, first of all, what public health is and why you think that argument is very important in the current reform process in this country?
Okay, so thank you very much. So a very layman explanation of public health, I want to make it very simple so that we can all see ourselves in public health, is that public health is both a science and an art, and it involves communities coming together to solve our problems. That is a very simple definition of public health. So if you look at the drug problem, it obviously involves we as communities. Communities in this case refers to individuals, organizations, professional bodies, governments, civil society, everyone who has interest on drug policies coming together and devising evidence-based approaches to solving our problem. Why is it a problem? Even if we start from the human rights lens, health is also a human right, which means that by the mere fact that you're a human being, you are entitled to health when you need it, whatever type of health care it is. So if you look at people who use drugs, they have obvious health problems. You have these people using needles to inject themselves. They are at risk of diseases that can be transmitted by such practices, including HIV, hepatitis B. So these are obviously health problems related to drug use, addiction. And so if we see these as health problems that are reducing the productivity of human beings, because let's remember that everybody, citizenry together, is human resource for the development of a country. So if you have people who are using drugs and they are incarcerated in prison, we are not making efforts to focus on what health interventions we can give them so that they can be reintegrated into society and contribute their bit to national development. Then that is a problem for us as a country, as individuals, as groups. And so we have to come together and solve those problems. That is why it is a public health issue.
So forgive my ignorance, but could we then stretch that same argument to apply to other criminals and say that, look, in respect of rapists, for example, instead of seeing rape as a criminal issue, see it as a public health issue because it's got to do with the mental situation of the person at a certain point in time. And so let's decriminalize it and make it a health issue. People could then extend this argument to meet other crimes, and it will fit into the definition you've given us so far?
Well, let me say that one very distinct thing about people who use drugs is that they are usually the vulnerable people in society and people who are marginalized. I don't see rapists belonging to that group. And I also haven't yet come across a study that absolutely says that rapists have mental health issues. But the victims of their rape activity are the ones who we should rather be focusing on and giving some support. So I wouldn't liken rapists to people who use drugs. If you rape somebody and if you possess drugs for personal use, we are talking about the effect that activity has on your own health as an individual and the health it poses to the general population and the development of a country at the end of the day. So I would not liken the two. In the case of rapists, I would rather argue for the health, immediate and long-term health risks that they rather pose on their victims.
Right. Thank you very much, Doc. I'll turn my attention to you, Dela, before I come to Honorable. So, Dela, you spoke about the economic potentials of cannabis, but the thing is that Ghana recently passed the Narcotics Control Commission Act allowing for the cultivation of cannabis of THC levels of 0.3% for medical research and industrial purpose. Tell us how this sits with you. Do you see it as good, as bad? Whichever way it goes, why so?
Okay. So, as I said earlier, I definitely see this as a very good and long overdue step. Like the panel has said, we need to stop punishing users, drug users who use it for personal use. With the government deciding on legalizing hemp, which is what has been legal now, we can take away that perception of hemp as being such an evil product or evil plant, and now actually look to it to find the economic benefits. Like I said, hemp has so many uses. Hemp can be used for concrete, it can be used for medicine, it can be used for a plethora of things. So now that we have taken it off the schedule that it was on, now it can actually be researched and see the full potential of hemp and not just have the idea that this is a bad thing. So anybody that uses it is also bad. We need to, from the law, we can separate those two ideas.
But here we are presented with a huge dilemma that you allow this to be grown for the purposes of industrialization, medical research, so on, even in an era where it is still illegal to do so. We find so many people growing these cannabis and using cannabis, and I'm sure that most of our audience here will admit to the fact that they have all pointed to one person or the other in our communities who became mentally ill, and that illness was associated with the use of cannabis. Now, how do we resolve this dilemma that you produce and you can make money, but you produce more, then there's the possibility that your young persons might misuse it and go wayward?
First and foremost, I don't know about anybody, for lack of a better term, going mad from cannabis. There might be other things that might have been added to the cannabis or other mental health issues that they may have. But I don't think there's any study that shows any direct correlation between the use of cannabis and going mad. So that is what, with this law being passed, we can actually now really, instead of looking at madness, what we call madness as just a product of consuming cannabis, we can actually now really look at mental health issues of people on the streets, people in the offices, people, everybody. Look at mental health issues rather than just blaming it on cannabis.
All right, I'll turn my attention now to Honorable Seth Kwame Champon. Honorable, so we knew in the past that there were some laws in respect of drug usage and so on in this country. Why then did it become necessary to introduce a new one? What were the loopholes, some of the gaps left by the old one that necessitated this new law?
Thank you very much. I think in my submission, I spoke about how transformed our society has become lately. And we are practicing systems that by the day research and science is leading us with. Fortunately, in our old law, our society by practice had grown and outgrown the laws that we had enacted by PNDC Law 236. So most of the traffickers, as well as users, were getting more sophisticated. In this day, we're not only just using marijuana as a drug so far classified. People are using precursors. People are using more soft, sophisticated scientific and injecting some more drugs. Crack cocaine, opium, heroin are all in the market. People go to pharmacy shops to purchase codeine, tramadol, and the influence of all manner of drugs. So as society gets more modernized, we needed to enhance the regulation. Hence, the reason for ensuring that Act 1019 was enacted. We could not just look at one side of prohibition. We needed to also look at the downside as well. What is causing them to go for what they are doing? What is the driving force behind those who are planting the illegal plants? It is for a socio-economic need. Then you need to provide for them an alternative livelihood. And so you would want to cure the ills of society by enacting a legislation which, at the end of the day, will serve the interest of all within the society. So those who seek to consume, you are always trying to help them, reform them by virtue of counseling and other methods and measures that are available to you. And then also encouraging them to stay away from it. But you should also look at the interest of the traffickers and the originators. They are also being driven by some economic interest. So you cannot leave them also out of the equation. Right. In as much as you do it all, this is one of the reasons why I think, and at the same time, public health personnel also have their challenge. And so how do we best aid their concerns? So the harm reduction, we had to bring it in, which was not in 236. So we gave space for them to also engage and deepen their practice. Then we can have some more experience as a country.
Honorable, you have been very instrumental in this new drug policy. March 2021, President attended to it. But what's the state of implementation? Can you tell us?
As we speak, when Mr. Akritisapon was the head of the Narcotics Control Board, he was the executive secretary. If you listened, I said a director general. Today we have a substantive director general. It used to be a board. Now it's a commission. So by the framework of the entity, it is expanded and enhanced. We're trying to get them more domesticated in all parts of the country. Hitherto, it was just a skeletal staff, and though it was an entity of state, the numerical strength was not that much. Today, by this new legislation, we are enhancing and ensuring that we get more professionals come on board, because it's a whole industry. You need practicing lawyers who have understanding of the subject, deeper appreciation of it, scientists, pharmacists, biochemists, because there are instruments and devices that are used in the industry. You require some technologists to also come and support. And so we needed to enhance and give more meaning into the nature and definition of the body. So these are some of the things. They are all in implementation. Recruitment has gone on. They have recruited more personnel to beef up their staff strength. Like I said, as I speak with you, there are 2 or 3 regulations that are going before Parliament. That is the welfare bit of it. That is the staff and members enhanced welfare systems. And then for the provision of Section 33, Section 43, the special provision relating to cannabis. So that is also the creation of the alternative livelihood. And that bit is also very crucial. And a draft bill, regulation is also on its way to Parliament that I have cited, but I'm not the administrator. So it must go through some processes before eventually we see it.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I'll return to the panel very shortly, but I do understand. Indeed, I know that the Narcotics Control Commission has their lawyer here. If you are here, I'd like you to do us the honor of responding to the legal issues, the policy, and how it will change anything, if at all. If you're here, can you just give me your hand? Oh, Nana Jumai, I see you as well. Thank you very much for coming, sir. Let's give Nana Jumai a round of applause. Thank you very much. I appreciate your coming here. Yes. Narcotics Control Commission, is the lawyer here? Just give me your hand. Oh, great. So I'll come to you. Just respond to the issues in respect of those that have been raised concerning the drug policy and how all that sits with your commission.
Okay. This is quite a surprise. It wasn't part of the... And normally, let me stand up. Hello. Before we can actually speak to anything, it has to be agreed on at the organization before I come out to say anything. So basically, specifically, what do you want to know? With respect to the whole policy, or just give me a specific question. If I can answer, I'll let you know. If I can't, I will let you know.
So in journalism, what I've done to you is called ambush. So we could get some answers from you. So in all of this, so we have a drug policy. Has it come to the attention of your office, which is ultimately going to oversee the implementation of this law? That's all we're asking.
We were there when the law was passed. We were part of it. We know the law has been passed. We are implementing the law. So your question is, what has come to my attention? Yes, I know the law has been passed. We are using it.
That's a lawyer's answer. She can brilliantly dodge the question. But let's give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. Lawyer, I'll still come back to you. I know you were playing it safe. And I'll return to the panel. Della, let me come to you before I bring Doctor into the picture. You specifically have a personal experience, especially, and you don't mind us sharing this here, that your mother had cancer at a point, and cannabis played a role. Is it what it is? Tell us, share that experience with us, and how medical research using cannabis came in to play a role in your mother's cancer.
So my mother passed away in 2017 from leukemia. So she had a lot of pain management issues, which she had to take a lot of morphine, tramadol, fentanyl on a daily basis. Now, the relationship we had with cannabis was I wanted her to try it to see whether it would help with her chemotherapy, her symptoms from chemo and pain, but she was not willing to try it. It was basically because of its illegal nature at that point in time, and also the public perception of it. We had a conversation. She was interested, but still very skeptical at that point in time. So for me, after she passed away, I took a lot of time to actually research into CBD and its benefits for cancer patients, and that's what has led me up to here right now.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing that personal experience with us. Doc, I'll come to you now, because experts and governments at international forums have always made this popular statement that we cannot achieve the SDGs without reforming drug laws, and that if indeed we mean to achieve the universal health coverage, then we should leave no one behind. But if we look at the situation with people who use drugs, we are leaving a key population behind through current policies. Why do we need a paradigm shift in drug policy as a necessary direction for the achievement of the SDGs?
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that the key SDG that we would focus on would be SDG 3, which is talking about wellness and promoting health. So our mantra towards UHC is that leave no one behind. Leaving no one behind also focuses on the most vulnerable in society. And I think that in the submissions of every one of us, we have all highlighted why people who use drugs are the most vulnerable. They are the ones who are at risk of the HIV, the hepatitis. So beyond the health risk that is posed to these individuals, we also have a group of people who are not having access to the type of care they should get because our laws are a little bit restrictive, such as cancer patients. I've had personal friends who have testified to the bronchodilator properties of some of these medications, people who have had asthma but took a little bit of it and improved. So you realize that we need a lot focus on the public health aspect, especially promoting research into how these drugs can then be used to answer some of the unanswered questions or the unmet needs that we have. So we can't say that we are going towards UHC when we are leaving these people behind. Public health is focused on the numbers of people who are suffering with a particular condition in terms of morbidity and also mortality. That is the key criteria that defines a public health property, public health problem. So if you look at numbers, you look at the number of people who are using drugs and communities that are affected by drug use. And then you also look at deaths from cancer, etc., because people do not have access to the type of medications that they should use. I think that is why we cannot say we are getting to UHC when we are not addressing vulnerable people. In mainstream healthcare, we also focus on vulnerable groups, for instance, maternal and child care. It is a major focus area that we invest in mainstream healthcare. But these are other populations that we are leaving behind. That is why we need to open eyes for people to see why they have to be part of the conversation. And so we don't have to leave a single person behind. And it includes people who are using drugs and also people who are affected by the use of these drugs.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll return to Dela before I bring Honorable into the picture, and then I'll come to the audience for you to ask your questions as well. So, Dela, briefly, I just want you to give us your opinion on what government should do in respect of farmers who are already illegally cultivating cannabis. Now we're asking for a policy. How should these farmers be roped in all of this?
So that's a loaded question, but as of now, the cannabis being grown in Ghana might not fit into what the law has passed, which is below 0.3% THC. So a lot of farmers have invested heavily in the other type of cannabis. So now the government would have to, first and foremost, I feel, offer cheap financing to these farmers and also try to organize these farmers in potentially cooperatives so that they are invested in their activities. And through that also, the government can take that opportunity to expand the tax net, because a lot of these farmers are in the rural areas and a lot of people there do not pay tax. So in giving these farmers an opportunity to actually come to the government to officially register and be part of a society or cooperative, and also give them cheap financing, it should be the spark at least to shift the paradigm from most of the local farmers doing the activities illegally to try and fall within the legal framework.
Right. Well, my next question to you is somewhat linked to the previous question. It's just that there is a global drug policy reform movement. What would you advocate for with respect to political engagement of stakeholders?
Thank you very much. I think that we cannot be an island in an ocean. We live as a country that interdepend on one another. And so as a government, our best is to learn of international best practice. And we'll continue to engage in dialogue with our partners, bilateral partners, multilateral partners. And then also through ours out there, we are doing, fortunately, post-passage of this law by the Parliament of Ghana in 2020. I've had the benefit of visiting a couple of countries, courtesy the civil society partnership that we've built to also sell the Ghanaian story, to help shape their pathway. And this is one of the ways that I think will encourage the war on drugs, because like His Eminent Kofi Annan established, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, former President Thabo Mbeki, these are all great statesmen who are driving and helping shape the paradigm in respect of making this a public health subject, and at the same time ensuring that we change our people through the socio-economic principles that we will be able to derive out of some of these policies. So I encourage all our government, and I know our government is not, as we speak, Ghana has been voted onto the Commission on Narcotic Drugs. For part, every continent has representation. So on the African continent, Ghana has been elected to sit on that body. The International Commission on, there's an INC, International Narcotics Board as well. Ghana has also gained a seat on there. This demonstrates that Ghana is not leaving out anything. Ghana is focusing. So the campaign is on, and it will not cease. We'll always make sure that we partner the international community to help bring a solution to this menace.
Another round of applause for our panel. And do remember that this event is streaming live on Facebook on the page of the West Africa Drug Policy Network, WADPN. You can share on Facebook with your friends who do not have the privilege to be here to also benefit from the discussions ongoing. It's now your turn, ladies and gentlemen. We have just about 20 minutes to do this and wrap it all up. We've overrun our time. And so if you have a question, like I said, oh, sorry, I needed to do this. The Ghana Medical Association is here, and then the Ghana Mental Health Authority. The Ghana Mental Health Authority also will make a statement. Doc, I'll bring the microphone to you. You briefly make your statement.
Thank you, Umwin. Thanks for the presenter. I think so far it's been quite an engaging session. And just a quick disclaimer, I'm the chairman of the Greater Accra Division of GMA, and truthfully, I'm here in my personal capacity. So any statement I make is on my head. Yeah, I just want to refer quickly to what Honorable said about small steps having been made, and I believe so. I was part of, Maria drafted me in to meet the select committee one time, met the speaker and all. You know, but when the policy or the law was promulgated, I said, well, it was a smart move. Though I was disappointed a bit, but I thought that it, considering the social, political, and economic circumstances, was a good initial step. Because I would just imagine what headline would be. Akufo-Addo say we can smoke weed. Probably with the first thing. Akufo-Addo say we need more them. But there were forces behind the religious groups and all pushing here and there. So I think it's a small step. But I think that small step can be quickened and widened, so that we can achieve more, even within the limited space. And I looked at the law, and even the non-custodial fine is huge. It's 2,400, 6,000, and that's prohibitive. And so it might still drive people under. And in default of that, you can still go to jail for up to 15 months. So I think we still have an opportunity to, make it a little softer. Whilst I'm not advocating for, that people should smoke. The other thing about the comment the other gentleman also made about, there was a question about, smoking or marijuana making you mad. And the truth is that for all substance of, I would say abuse, substances that can be used on a personal level, it may have some deleterious effect on you. And so our threshold for, going. I've seen people use marijuana all their life, not even the regulated one. And they've never been mad. They are good doctors, they are good lawyers, and so it is also an individual predisposition. That is why I'm happy that they've selected a THC threshold that is a bit international, standardized, so that the risk, even if you have that inherent risk, is marginally reduced, And talking about the further steps that needs to be taken, I am a medical person, and I think that they are not established, but fairly agreeable use of marijuana, which we stand to benefit. So in putting up the regulation, let's hasten in that direction so that it is available for persons who may need them, to help in treating their medical condition. And as an academic, I would push for increased research, because you see, what works somewhere may not be what works in Ghana. What dosages, what formulations works for us? There's the oil that he's talking about. Does it work well in blacks or Africans? So we need research. One, now that is in this schedule, it gives the opportunity for research, institutions and funders to put in money to do formulations and, concentrations that will work for us. So I think that these are my few comments. Thank you.
So Dr. Arthur from the Mental Health Authority was, okay.
Right, thank you. Mental Health Authority is happy to be part of this session. And I was very excited to hear the minister talking about all the angles, not only prohibition, but livelihood and all that being considered in the new policy that is being prepared, right? Good. So we are happy to be part of this engagement. One other thing that I lost on your presentation is about how much education would go into this. Because there is huge perception that marijuana, cannabis, and all that is related to mental health issues, problems. And so the moment you mention this policy, people are already skeptical. What do you intend with this policy? But if the policy is going to cover the livelihood and all that, it's a good policy. I mean, the business aspect is that, but we need to look at the health aspect too as well. And we are leaving nobody behind. So for Mental Health Authority, for example, tomorrow we are having a seminar about drugs. And in support of the International Drugs Day, this seminar is looking at providing parents, guardians, wards about subtle signs if your ward, your friend, your colleague, or whoever is beginning to engage in drugs. What are the subtle signs that you can pick from that and you'll be able to support that person? So information will be provided about resources where people can seek for help and all that. So we don't want to leave somebody behind. We don't want even you to start. And we have to pull, we don't have the energy to pull you. We don't want you to get there. So that is what mental health is doing for tomorrow. I think I would have to share the link with organizers of this program so that they can share and people who are interested will join. It's a virtual seminar. So anywhere you are sitting, you can be part of it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, I've been told that we have...
Just a second. Just to buttress the point. If you look at the law, Section 2, 2A, 2A and 2C, talks about collaborate. 2B says collaborate with the relevant bodies. The anticipation on this legislation was that we will partner bodies like you, i.e. the Narcotics Control Commission's educational unit, will partner with relevant bodies of government so that we do all the necessary education. Sometimes it may not necessarily be you, it may be other public body. So those are the essence of those legislations. And at the same time, C says develop in collaboration with other relevant bodies. So we realize that it would be prudent that going forward, you would involve more stakeholders, even in government, in the deployment of the policy. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Honorable. I've been told that we've overrun our time, really, and so we have to wrap it all up right now. Fortunately, there will be an informal session even when we close. So for those of us who need certain clarifications, fortunately, we have the Mental Health Authority here. We have the Ghana Medical Association. Even though he's here in his personal capacity, he will be able to respond to some of our queries. And then we do have our expert panel also here who will be available for you to ask them questions. You will recall that we started this event by launching the Kofi Annan Memorial Lectures. Fortunately, we have the son of Mr. Kofi Annan himself here with us, Kojo Annan. We'll give him the opportunity to respond to the gesture by the WADPN. Mr. Annan, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. All protocols observed. I'm just really here to give a vote of thanks to all the eminent guests and panelists that we've had, and everybody who's attended today, and to thank, on behalf of the family, the association for setting up this new annual lecture in honor of my late father. Just very briefly, in summation, I think we all learned a lot of very insightful and interesting information today from everybody speaking. I think it's fitting that we're launching this in the University of Legon, one of Africa's finest educational establishments, because I think at the core of everything we've seen today is about education. I think we need to educate ourselves on all these new policies we're learning. There's no need to be emotive in our responses. I think everything is available through education. So if one researches, Googles information, go and do the research, I think you'll find that a lot of what is being said here is based on irrefutable scientific evidence, and I think sometimes the science outweighs everything else because it's science-based and evidence-led. And that's why leaders like my late father, President Obasanjo, Thabo Mbeki, if you go to the larger international group, respected leaders like Richard Branson, they're all advocating for this change because it's been based on research and analysis. And of course, change is difficult and change takes time. And as I said, we've made some great incremental steps here in Ghana, and hopefully those will take further steps over the coming years. But I would urge most people to do your research, take examples of other countries that perhaps you respect and have regard for, and see some of the major changes they've made in the past years, from the US to Europe to Asia to South Africa to other African countries. These are countries that also have great leadership, and they've made bold changes around this space of drugs policy, health, and economic benefits. And I would use an example when we talk about madness and some of the things that have been brought up here, if we just use an example of a state like, in a country like the United States, the largest